2025 NFL Week 1, and Ron and I are here to do our basic first look at week number 1. We are recording early, so this is not live on Tuesday. We're unable to record at the regular time, but we wanted to put out what we thought each and every week 1, Ron. I think our focus is to remember we've been waiting. We have our predispositions a little bit, or our thoughts on the range the teams can, be throughout the course of the season. And we know better than to overreact to week 2, but we like to run through every game and touch on expectations, touch on if there is a way that a team can change our opinion or cause concern or cause our ears to perk up. So that's what we're going to primarily do, and a handful of other discussions. So how are you doing this Tuesday afternoon?
It's Tuesday early. I don't know how I'll be doing on the real Tuesday, but today, feeling good. We've had 5 months, like you said, to really think about this. My personal plays have been in for a long time. And the only thing that's shaped my opinion has been whatever's happened in the preseason, which really doesn't shape that much. It's really just getting into the mindset of these teams and for us to decipher how ready they are and whether they're ready or not. What are the consequences of if they lose this game, if they win this game? It's probably not going to change our opinion a lot. But it's something that we want to be ahead of the curve on in case there's something that we see in week 1 that we want to react to real quickly in week 2 or beyond. Season win totals, divisional, who's going to win the division, they're up now every single week. It's not just if you missed it at the start of the year, you don't get it. So if something really goes haywire or something is a pleasant surprise, you start kind of doing some building blocks to determine whether or not you want to pivot, whether or not you want to strengthen the position, whether you want to just sit still.
I thought we would start off. What do you think about? I just wanted to touch on that Green Bay Dallas trade. I hope it's not old news by Tuesday. My initial reaction was that Dallas got fleeced, but is that the way you see it?
I don't see it at all that way. Guys like Mike Florio, who's all about the rumor mill and stuff, he's just harping on Jerry Jones, this, that, and whatever. I think this is a win-win for both teams with a potential of a bigger win for Dallas. Dallas historically has not done great work on day 3 of NFL drafts, rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. The reason being is they don't have, it's Jerry Jones getting in the way. I have to do this. We need to do this and whatever. But they are historically strong in week 1. And now that they have 4 picks in the next 2 drafts, if they keep them, they could lay a foundation, much like other teams lay foundation when they get 4-for-1 trades, 5-for-1 trades, and they build back their roster. Yes, Micah Parsons is a big loss from a standpoint of how really good he is. But if Dallas really isn't that good this year, they're going to get a pick of a high pass rusher with their own pick as it is this coming year. Kenny Clark adds to the run defense. The risk to me, Cris, is with Green Bay. What if Parsons is hurt? They've just given up. They're not going to draft probably until pick 50, 55 or something like that in each of the next 2 drafts. If they really are a playoff team the next 2 years, they're sacrificing the future for now. And so this is a good move for them, providing Parsons is healthy, but they take on the greater risk, in my opinion.
The Green Bay gives up run defense in exchange for somebody that's not going to help with the run. Yeah. Somebody that has been known to take plays off, somebody that's been injured. Somebody that has 3 Pro Bowl seasons behind them already. You're only going to get so many sometimes. So I'm not so sure Parsons is the stone cold lock that a contributor that people have made him out to be, so to speak. I mean, even if he does really well, how does Green Bay stop the run? Does Love stay healthy? And here's my question to you. In any way, shape, or form, prior to the trade, did you consider Green Bay within a player or two of being Super Bowl worthy?
I consider them Super Bowl worthy only because they're in the NFC, because I have three teams clearly ahead of them, and they're all in the AFC. And so if they can, to me, they're near equal to the Lions, especially if Parsons is healthy. They're Philadelphia, we talked about their schedule issues and so on and so forth. Hard to repeat. San Francisco, do we really know? The Rams, at their current roster, maybe not in the top five, but I always caution people, they are as active as anybody right before the trading deadline. In fact, the Parsons situation reminds me of the Rams in a way. The Rams got a pass rusher just before the trading deadline, the year they won the Super Bowl, and Green Bay's doing it now. Are they a player away? Not necessarily, but a player like Parsons can take them from a playoff team to flipping maybe one playoff game. I don't mind the move if you tell me he's going to be healthy for 15 games or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because and I believe that they have $100 million tied up into two players at the moment now, and you're still the youngest team in the NFL.
Yep, 3 years running,
and this just seems like it could really blow up in their face and cause lasting problems if they don't, if they aren't met with success, immediately. So. Yeah, I'm like you. I've shifted. I actually think the problem is if you knew Dallas was going to draft properly and use their draft picks properly, I would say it's a clear-cut win for Dallas. But they've been known to Jerry Jones things up, and we're gonna have to see how this plays out. But I think if all things being equal, I think Dallas did okay. I don't think they needed to overpay him. Hutchinson was in the middle of negotiating his deal, so he was happy to see this go and go down as it is. So, but I think it's do or die for Green Bay.
Well, it could be due, just like the Rams, short-term consequence. They want that Super Bowl ring. This gives them a chance to get it. I mean, Kenny Clark is a nice piece. I hated that they had to get rid of him. If you're a fan of Green Bay, that has some consequences because you can't rush the passer if they don't have to run, if they don't have to pass the ball. So, that's one of the problems. I don't know if I trust Jerry Jones at anything. He could get cued and trade away picks or whatever. But if he makes 4 picks, 2 in the first round in 2026 and 2 in the first round in 2027, it's not bad. Now, Jerry's not getting any younger, so he could mess this up. But on paper, an organization that makes this kind of move, it's not bad.
Well, it certainly makes the first game on the menu this week a little bit more interesting. Dallas playing Philadelphia. As we said, we kind of, it's, for me, I haven't done, I went back to my old ways and I didn't worry about the NFL the whole summer. I'm not sick of looking at the first week lines. I never even looked at them. So I'm actually looking at the first half. I glanced at them, but this is going to be the first run through of the board that I've seen. And I don't care. I've got a full season ahead of me. I don't feel any urgency. I didn't start off last season well, and I think that was partially because I was over enthusiastic, and I think I cautioned about that too. So it's easy to do. So I'll just remind people: don't become over enthusiastic, and just keep on adding stuff.
Yeah. So this game, as far as the consequences here, if Dallas won, it would be stealing a divisional road win, and it would perk them up and so on. Kenny Clark's ready now, so we know that they get more mileage out of week 1 because he's in the lineup. A bad loss for Dallas would possibly cause some player, why did you trade Parsons away? You're blowing this or whatever. Any other regular kind of loss to the Super Bowl champs on the road wouldn't bother me, but a bad loss would bother me with Dallas. And let's say Philly wins 13-12 and they don't look good. I'm going to take away nothing from that. A win is a win is a win, first week of the year or whatever. It's a divisional game. I'm likely not going to change my opinion on Philly after this game.
Yeah, I noted that I just want to see if Dallas has a spine or not. If Dallas comes out with an outright win, that's going to perk my ears up. I think that'll indicate that that the team has the right perspective going in. You got to pay attention to whether Philly lost it or Dallas won it in that situation. But if Philadelphia wins, it's not going to really matter to me. One note on this game: it's a matchup between two quarterbacks I don't believe that played in the preseason. So, if anything, I might be looking. There's a trend to the under with quarterbacks that did not play in preseason. So that's one consideration that I'll be looking at. But
final point from me then is I expect Dallas not to run the ball well at all. So this whole thing hinges on adding Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, excellent weapons, but I expect Dak to be throwing almost 40 times in this game. So how that plays out might decide the game.
That'll be interesting. How do you anticipate that he connects to these receivers? He's not going to be playing the long ball with them, is he?
They may try with Lamb, depending on if Philly tries to blitz or not. They have some young guys up front. The big thing is with Pickens is a contested catch winner. So he's going to throw it up. And if he gets single coverage, Pickens can win that matchup. So he may try a few 50-50 balls with Pickens to see. He's going to have to probably because everybody's going to know they're going to have to pass on a lot of downs.
How's that Dallas offensive line looking?
I think it's slightly above average overall. We tend to ding it because it's not the top 5 that they used to be a few years ago. I think they're experienced enough. They have some growing pains at 2 of the spots, but in general, it's probably going to hold up. But again, obvious passing situations, so it's not going to hold up every single time.
Well, it's going to be an interesting game. I know people are rooting for a Dallas win that are in Survivor because that'll take out a bunch of people, I think, and add more entries, though. Friday's game. Where is that Friday game?
Brazil.
Okay. Kansas City at the Chargers. My notes, I think there's been Kansas City fatigue. And I think it's kind of coming around back a little bit where we are not as fatigued as we were. But it seems like Kansas City's been this offseason just going about their business quietly. Mahomes played, Kelce played, everybody played, I think. It just seems like they're down to business. I think that they see their window closing, and I think they'd like to make the most of the season. I don't think Kelce will be back. They drafted very well again. The Chargers, second-year Harbaugh. What's he going to do with a full year under his belt? And are we going to see more improvement from Herbert? Herbert's got some, that offense, looks in better shape than it did last year. Their defense led the league in scoring. And their offense wasn't able to help them out as much as they needed to, surprisingly. They had a little bit of the injury bug, but they got some players. I anticipate a close game. We know Kansas City had all those one-score games last year. I think that this should be a hard-fought game. I don't think either team can change my perception unless Kansas City got blown out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think these teams are better than they were a year ago. It's usually you take the Super Bowl loser and you say, well, they're not going to be better, but they filled some gaps and holes. They're on a mission. And we saw Mahomes play in 2 different games in the preseason. So he's very intent on stretching the field. in this particular season. It's not going to be dink and dunk if he can get away with it. Divisional scheduling disadvantage for the Chargers in almost every one of the games that they play versus Kansas City and Denver. So here you have a neutral site. They're sort of on level playing field, even though the Chargers gave up a home game. But that doesn't matter. This is the same stadium for each. And I just think the Chargers need to have more to prove in this game. I know that they played Kansas City close in the past. It's important for them to prove that they can actually win a tight game. Kansas City knows how to win tight games. They won way more than their fair share of tight games. So my thing here is, no, I'm not going to change the perception of either of these two teams afterwards. But for the Chargers, this is a meaningful game.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. I think both teams are going to come and they're both going to want this game a lot. I think Kansas City doesn't, feels, people breathing on their neck, and I think that they would like to just lead from the front this season if they get the opportunity to do so. And I think I saw Mahomes. Obviously, he had a very low yardage per completion or yardage per attempt last year. And I think I saw a notation that it was significantly improved in the preseason. So definitely focusing on that.
Yeah. So what's intriguing to me about this matchup is both run games in a way. The Kansas City run game has more options, and they go against the 1 weak link that the Chargers had, and that's the run D, although I expect a Harbaugh team to be better in year 2. And then you have the rookie Hampton for the Chargers, and I'm really curious to see how he does right out of the gate, because he could be a 3-down guy. He could catch out of the backfield. Chargers didn't have a running back who could catch out of the backfield with consistency last year. So I think it's an intriguing matchup watching the run games actually and how it's stopped or not stopped.
Yeah, that Hampton was a diamond in the rough for them, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was drafted with their 20, whatever it was, first round pick. He had 2 tremendous years at North Carolina. And he got a little bit of action in the preseason. That's all he needed just to get his feet wet. And now we're going to see Harbaugh would love to have that kind of balance. That's a staple of his kind of team.
Do you have high aspirations with Herbert with with what he's been given coming into this season as far as tools?
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to throw just 3 interceptions like last year. That's an anomaly. And he does lose a stud tackle, obviously. But besides that, he's going to have more help in the run game as long as Hampton stays healthy and so on. And Najee Harris is there. He's a powerful between the tackles kind of guy too. And they have more weapons at wide receiver. I expect the offense to evolve in year 2. I'm excited about what the Chargers can do, although I don't like their schedule pacing.
Yeah, but if they stay healthy, they're going to be there. I would say.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh at New Jersey. I mean, the Jets.
Consequences for this game? It's really just grudge matches, Chris.
Yeah, it is one of the more interesting games, somewhat. But Rodgers didn't play preseason, so is the offense going to sputter early? If there is an offense, I think we're feeling okay on that Pittsburgh defense, aren't we?
They're healthy right now. Well, actually, I shouldn't say they're healthy right now. They have 2 guys, Highsmith and Herberg, who didn't play in the preseason. You got to watch whether or not they're questionable or doubtful or something like that. They're not. Sometimes you don't get good reads on who's really injured and who's really not before week 1. But there are a couple pieces of Pittsburgh in the front 7. A little concern. Let's see what the Thursday injury report has.
Are they going to be able to, is that offensive line going to be able to protect for Rodgers?
Against the Jets, probably. In the long term, they're going to need the second-year guys to grow a little bit. It's not going to be perfect. The good thing about Rodgers, of course, is that he snap throws it. I mean, when he throws it, it's right away. He can buy you. He's not like Justin Fields, for example. Justin Fields has to see it to make sure it's open. So the difference in the fact that Rodgers could could operate behind a suspect offensive line, and Fields would need a little more time and help.
Convince me the Jets offense is going to work.
I can't really convince you of that. They have some run pass balance. They basically have one wide receiver. I have a problem with the Jets overall, but I have flip-flopped about a dozen times in this particular game because we talk all about, the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is there. He wants to stick it to the Jets and so on and so forth. What about Justin Fields, who was 4-2 with Pittsburgh, and then he was replaced? And then you thought he was going to be re-signed, and then he wasn't re-signed. There's some disrespect for Fields as well. So it's a real interesting game. I can't promise anything from the Jets. That's why you have a lower total on this particular game. But the one thing about Rodgers and his body language is he doesn't have a great wide receiver group. What's it going to look like when a second-year rookie wide receiver runs a bad route? Is he going to stare him down?
Are we counting on the Jets having a solid defense a little bit early? How much do you think Salah leaving can affect that defense?
I think in the secondary, there's not going to be too much of a drop. The worry is how the pieces come into play on the defensive line. We talked briefly about this last week. The Jets, about 9 days ago or so, maybe about 7-8 days ago, took two guys off the waiver wire at defensive tackle. One of them is going to start. And that tells me that they're not happy with what's going on at defensive tackle. So if that's a work in progress, then Pittsburgh and their offensive coordinator, they'll try to take the pressure off Rodgers by running the ball. And they have a rookie running back as well that could do some damage. So if the Jets can't get the defensive tackle right early in the season, it's going to cost them.
Fields really didn't have a good preseason, did he? I didn't pay close attention, but it seemed like he had not a great start.
Let me see if I have that in front of me. I can tell you this, though. Fields never going to look great.
I don't have any confidence in him at all. I think he's a bottom tier quarterback. What do you think?
4 for 9 passing, 3 for 19 running. So I'm glad he got action because he's with a new team. You want him to at least see action with the line, with the play calling, with the new offensive coordinator. But this is Fields all year. You're going to see more down than up. If he wins this game, he'll win it with his legs as much as his arm.
Yeah, well, he's not going to be able to run too easily against Pittsburgh.
Well, they know who Justin Fields is because they had him last year. So you're talking about turnovers, missed opportunities, kicking. It kind of sets up as a low scoring game.
Did Indianapolis win their home first game last year? They lost against Houston, didn't they?
I think they've lost a whole bunch of first games, if I remember correctly.
I think that's 11 in a row, isn't it?
Yeah, them and Cleveland, they've had a lot of trouble winning early, and some other teams in general because they don't try in the preseason, the Rams and so on. But yeah, Indy's had problems, definitely.
You know what? We didn't, as far as the result of the Pittsburgh Jets. It doesn't matter what they do game one. Anything could happen in that game, and it's not going to change anything for me. What about you?
Probably won't change anything for me, although a damaging loss by Pittsburgh, just tells me that, there's a lot of people out there saying Rodgers is washed up, and I don't think we want to bring up any 1 week, 1 week performance shouldn't do anything. We saw that yesterday, Arch Manning against Ohio State. And he didn't look great. He ended up 17 for 30 with a touchdown interception. This game one, relax. The guy's a kid. Rodgers isn't a kid, but he probably needs some throws to get back into the rhythm. So I don't think I'll take much of anything in this.
Obviously, if he comes out there with a noodle arm, that changes things. But All things considered, it's going to be difficult to change a perspective. Miami and Indianapolis, I have no notes on that game. I just wrote ugh.
Yeah.
That's probably the least interesting game. I'm not gonna trust anything that I see because
I'll give you my notes and you can react to them. See if this makes any sense. I think Miami has to win the toss-up games, and they have to win them early, because when injuries hit, this is not a deep roster. They need to build up win equity right now. I think they have a playoff opportunity if they stay healthy. But if they lose toss-up games, so consequences of this game is important. And for Indianapolis, confidence boost is very important. If they finally win on opening day, if Daniel Jones starts 1-0, I think these are confidence boosters. I think the loser of this game, it's not a good look for the loser of this game, in my opinion. That's what I'm coming into. And my key, I have two keys that you could react to. One is Miami's pass rush, which I think is going to be in the top 10 this year against Indianapolis offensive line. They let two offensive starters going. I'm worried about Indianapolis offensive line against Indy's pass rush. And the second thing is, do we believe or do we not believe that Indy turned it around with their pass defense in August? It's just so hard after a decade of terrible pass defenses. And all of a sudden, 43%, that's something I'm going to have my eye on as well.
Yeah, that's 43% pass D in preseason was something else, because that's just so far off the reservation. You'd think there has to be something to it at the very least. Miami's supposed to be the better team here, I think. And I agree with you. They need to win these games. They were in the playoff hunt late, but they did it all by, they never beat a team over 500. And they were decimated by injuries by the year end. And if I'm not mistaken, they had the injury bug the year before. So like you said, if they stay healthy, they do have a playoff opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, a team, we're going to get to Carolina, Jacksonville, so it's appropriate. Indy season, even though we may not think highly of Indy's roster or Daniel Jones, or we may not think highly of Jacksonville's quarterback ascension, Lawrence hasn't proven to taken the next step. All these teams are actually in the playoff mix at 0-0, because Houston, even though they're better coached and they have a good quarterback, their metrics suggest regression. So all these games are important right away. And if Indy and Jacksonville, either one of them start 0-2, then it's going to be same old Indy, same old Jacksonville.
Who's coaching Indianapolis now?
Steichen, I think he's same coach, and he's a decent coach. He just hasn't been given a lot of tools to work with. I mean, he's been given Anthony Richardson, and those guys were so giddy when they drafted him. It was disgusting. And then they're so happy with Daniel Jones. And if I'm the coach, I'm not happy at all with either of those two.
I think they've got problems with Richardson. I don't know what they're going to do with the guy. I don't know. But Carolina, Jacksonville.
Tell me.
It's just complete chaos. Both of these teams have so many, issues. We've got the new head coaching in Jacksonville, and Trevor Lawrence basically is long overdue to show that he's even an above average quarterback at this point.
Yeah, so I don't have much on this game, because basically these are teams that's trying. 1-0 sounds better than 0-1. That's the only consequence of this game. Somebody's going to be 1-0 and feel better, but their roster isn't going to improve just because they're 1-0. And then one of them is going to be 0-1, and it's going to be, and not the end of the world, but they're not probably making the playoffs. I'm just watching matchups. I think the Jaguars, based on all intel that I'm looking at, they're going to ask Lawrence to complete shorter passes, move the chains one step at a time. And Carolina, I got to watch their D. Everybody says they improved at the end of the year. Not to me. 31.7 points allowed in their last 7 games. So I think these are flawed teams, and I have no consequences or nothing that's going to excite me after the game, I think.
I checked in on our week on the same video last year, and you had high aspirations for Jacksonville.
I had high aspirations for Lawrence, and it didn't work. And he not that I didn't have a season win total, but I expected Lawrence to be better, and it didn't happen. You're right.
Yeah. And we were talking about Carolina's defense last year, and they finished better with that. But Bryce Young had a great second half of the season, or last set of games. Yeah. Or is he that quarterback, or is he the quarterback everybody ridiculed? That's what I can't figure out.
Well, they hope he's the quarterback because his resurgence cost them a chance at an early draft pick. So, in a sense, they're riding with him. And if it doesn't work in a deeper quarterback year, they're going to go out and get a quarterback. So it's still a show me year for Bryce Young.
Who else? Who does he have to throw the ball to?
He has, he doesn't have Thielen as his security blanket. So he's going to rely on tight ends, of which I do like second-year tight end Sanders. Off the top of my head, it's not going to be pretty because he is a second-year wide receiver that went through a lot of growing pains last year as a rookie. So, they're sort of innovative offensively. They have a decent run attack. They put up some points with Bryce Young after he came back from being benched. I'm still worried about their defense. It's just an incomplete team.
Just in general, though, I mean, we do know who the superstar wide receivers are, but how big of a drop off is it really? For a team like Carolina, where neither of us can name a receiver on the team. What is the drop off? For an NFL receiver that actually makes NFL rosters? They may have no name to them. You may not know who they are. But is there really that huge of a drop off? Well, how can they develop working relationships with the quarterback that just work? I mean, does it boil down to, hey, run the right routes and catch the ball? What do you think on this?
My first thought is that's why I love this brainstorming. I mean, that's a brilliant question that I just love the way that was framed. Yeah, with Tom Brady went years without a superstar quarterback and won. Bryce Young probably needs a little more talent. So my answer to you is that Rodgers could probably make it work. Bryce Young, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because he doesn't have the same DNA as far as superstar quarterback, at least at this point. So a young quarterback like Bryce Young needs efficient tight ends, and then the wide receiver group is minimized. It says if you have a solid tight end, if you have Brock Bowers, for example, at tight end, as a rookie, and look what he did, maybe you can make it work. I think they have an emerging tight end, but not a superstar tight end. So it is going to be difficult for Bryce Young. I think you have to have a better quarterback to make it really work.
I don't think they would have dumped Thielen and left him with literally no tools in the shed. I mean, that would just be egregious on their part.
Yeah, I don't know. Bryce Young probably threw a lot to the rookie guys, so maybe he has a little chemistry with them from last year and so on as he was developing. I don't know what Thielen's salary. I think Thielen's salary was like $4 million, so it wasn't like they were doing a salary dump.
I think it was 7.
Oh, 7? Well, okay, that's a little bit more. Carolina probably knew that making the playoffs was a long shot, and maybe they wanted to get a jump start on getting the receivers developed. But Carolina, you're talking about a division that really doesn't know how to draft well, and Carolina is one of the poster childs for that. So succession planning's been an issue.
I would just, I just think these teams should play somewhat competitively. Jacksonville better get the win if, in this situation. I think the only thing that would, if we're not going to know enough about either of these teams after one game. It doesn't matter what happens.
I don't know what's going to happen in this game.
Giants, Washington, I think it's, that's an interesting storyline. As mentioned previously, we actually pumped up Washington before last season. It was mentioned that we couldn't figure out why they did not do better the previous years. They had a lot of tools and they just did not put it together. This could be, meaning last season, a good year. So I think that they had a lot of lucky ends, and I don't think they're going to have as much good fortune as they had last year. I think the Giants got a little refreshing, in the quarterback position. There's a lot of confidence in the defense. These divisional games, you expect both of these teams to play hard, and I don't think Washington's going to. I think Washington will, be met with some obstacles along the way, and this is the perfect type of game for that to happen. Nothing would surprise me other than a Giants blowout.
Mm-hmm. I think that this game has consequences for both teams. If the Giants do not look good, all their good karma in the preseason goes away. We talked about that last week. The Giants are rolling into this game, I think, in a good spot mentally. They had a good camp. They saw some things out of their players. A lot of things look good. Russell Wilson, say what you want, it's still an upgraded quarterback, and they like what Jackson Dart brings in the long term and stuff like that. But all that goes away if they lose by double digits week one. Just like if a team looked bad in week one and they start 1-0, they forget all about the preseason. And when does win number 2 come for the Giants if they can't get it in this game? So it's important for them. And from Washington's standpoint, that schedule is going to be much more tricky than it was a year before. They're going to play tougher opponents. They're going to play on Sunday night, Monday, Thursday. Their prime time schedule gets beefed up. There's a lot of hype. There's tape on Daniels. This is a divisional game, like you mentioned. They can't start 0-1 because this is not the tricky part of their schedule. Week one, it's just week one. They can't start 0-1 and then be in all these unfamiliar situations. So it's an intriguing, consequential game for both teams for different reasons.
Yeah, they're going to have a bullseye on their back. They can't sneak up on teams. It took until deep last season for teams to take Washington seriously.
That's correct.
And that's going to be a different story this year. So interesting game at least. And then
my one key matchup here is that I wonder, Washington had over 7-yard run defense, I think, in the playoffs, and it wasn't good in the regular season. Intriguing to me is if the Giants can run on Washington, because there's a path to a Giant victory. As much as Washington is a better team than the Giants for the long run, there's a path to a Giant victory if they can keep Daniels off the field.
Yeah, agreed. Cincinnati, this is their annual opening day loss. They've lost the first 2 games of each of the last 3 seasons. Different MO, though, this year. The starters played in preseason, and they played more than 1 game. So they're coming at it from a different perspective. They got Hendrickson signed, or Hendricks, whatever his name is, signed, but that was a little bit of a mess for a while, and he's on a 1-year contract. This morning, somebody mentioned to me, and I looked at what we said last year about Cleveland, and Cleveland, we thought, had a lot of tools. They were a solid team. I mean, we know about their defense. The quarterback situation was a little but they had a lot of potential coming out of 23 and into 24. And I was reminded of that this morning by somebody. And when I think back on it, I go, Cleveland is positioned, to sneak up on people. They are not the let's make a run for the number one pick type quality team. They're better than that. They've kind of lulled us into apathy toward them, and they got absolutely annihilated by injuries last year. On top of it, they could give Cincinnati trouble right outside the gate, and they could surprise people. You even had Danny Cannell, who got completely ridiculed, saying he could win 9 games.
Yeah, they will be under the radar. They won't get everybody's best shot. Last year, they had not every piece. Defensively, I thought they played better. I was worried about their splits. But Deshaun Watson was a big problem for me. And that's why I thought they weren't going to be good, even with the pieces. Well, Deshaun Watson isn't there now. Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to win. And he's one of the keys to this game. Will he contribute to his team more than the other team? Because he does throw picks. My biggest key to this game is Myles Garrett. Can he take over this game? Because like you said, Joe Burrow is healthy. This is the first time in 5 years, not counting, the COVID year was weird for everybody. But he hasn't been healthy. And that offense looks super right now. That defense looks far less than super right now. This has been a tough spot for Cincinnati to play. And because of that, even if Cincinnati loses this game, it probably won't change my opinion of Cincinnati. I know Cleveland hasn't started well out of the gate. I won't have that much takeaway from Cincinnati. I think they're not good defensively. I think they're great offensively. If they win, maybe that's a little bit of a perk if they win by margin, because I don't always expect Cincinnati to come out of the gate. But I don't think my perception will change much after this game.
If things go south for Cleveland, they can obviously, throw in the towel on the season. Stefanski isn't going to be on the hot seat because of, the season down the drain. The owners have acknowledged that he put him behind the 8 ball with the Watson deal and stuff. But so I can see Cleveland's season going either way. I guess it would be. It'd be kind of. I anticipate a closer game than we imagine. The only thing that would surprise me is a Cleveland blowout. But the way these teams start off, you can't. There's always one or two teams like New England last year against Cincy, and I forget who else. There's always a handful of teams each season, week 1, that do the exact opposite of what they end up being. So you just have to remember that.
Yeah, be careful next week. Yeah, final thought on this game is that the only damaging thing for Cincy is if they want to compete head to head with Baltimore, I don't think you want to lose the divisional game. That's the only thing.
Las Vegas and New England, that's pretty darn interesting. We've got 2 first-year head coaches.
Yeah.
I don't think Pete Carroll signed up at 84 for the long haul. I think he wants to win now. And New England's got that's going to be a darn good game that typically you just hold your nose at. But I want to see what happens in that game.
Yeah, I see absolutely, unless you can convince me otherwise, no edge for either team in motivation or consequence. Both coaches, Vrabel wants to prove that he's come back to the league with a vengeance. He was fired. Carroll wants to prove that he's still got it at his age and stuff like that. The youthful Carroll in a very tough division. I see no edge. The only thing I'm watching 2 things in this game. What does Geno Smith look like in the fourth quarter? Can he pull out games? Can Genty help? Is he the real deal kind of thing? And on the other side, usually Mike Vrabel teams defend the run very, very well. And they're a little softer versus the pass. So I kind of want to see what Geno looks like against the pass defense in a fourth quarter crunch time, because I think this is a flip a coin game.
It's not going to surprise me to see Gino out of that starting position by the end of the season. But
Yeah.
he can do well enough. But I think we saw that one season peak out. And I know O'Donnell had a really nice preseason and was looking a lot better before he got injured. So
I like that phrase well enough, because that's the John Kitna phrase. He gets you to the wall, but he can't cross you over, into the promised land. And I worry about Geno Smith with a less than perfect roster bringing you into the promised land.
Both of those head coaches are vying for divisional titles. I'll guarantee that. So it's going to be full court press. Interesting game. Arizona at New Orleans. Last year, Arizona played Buffalo and covered that spread week 1. We were kind of excited about Arizona, and we were kind of hoping that they would have a pretty good, surprising season, and they kind of laid an egg and showed some signs of life at one point. But the higher expectations this year, Harrison coming in looking strong. New Orleans, boy, to me, it just feels like a lost season, before it even started. So the only thing that would surprise me is if New Orleans, handled Arizona, handily.
Yeah, Arizona caught a break playing Buffalo last year. It sounds crazy in retrospect, but Buffalo was a little damaged at the defensive line. They couldn't really rush Kyler Murray in that particular game. They got healthy a little bit later on. And Arizona has all these new defensive pieces, and I've said this all along. It's not that the defense doesn't have talent, is that can they be coached? I'm really worried about the coach. And speaking of coaches, Kellen Moore, he looked like I like Kellen Moore for the long run, but it's a deer in headlights situation to start the year in a way. They didn't get things figured out in August. Because I don't trust Arizona's defense, I think anything can happen in this particular game. But in reality, I don't think New Orleans is that good a team. Kamara's going to have to discover the fountain of youth a little bit here. The only reason there's consequences for me in this game is that every game we saw Seattle last year go 10-7 and miss the playoffs. So if Arizona loses this game, eventually competes because they can win any game on their schedule. I don't doubt that Arizona can compete with anybody on their schedule, but some team that's 9-8 or 10-7 in the NFC West may not make it again. So you don't want to lose any of these games.
Well, that's why we love the NFL, because every game matters. You kind of go to opening day baseball as a tradition more than interest, and attendance, falls to game 2 massively, and you won't see that in the NFL. So I agree with you. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. That's going to be interesting too.
Yeah, you have this is the best week 1 I've ever seen, not necessarily from a wagering standpoint, but from a meaningful game standpoint. And this divisional game is incredibly important. I know Tampa has the much tougher schedule, but they navigated it last year. They would have ran away with it if not for cluster wide receiver injuries, missing Evans and Godwin 3 games in a row, and they only lost by like 5 or 6 points cumulative. So they were by far the better team in this division last year. Now they have the same thing, cluster wide receiver injuries again to start the year and a tough schedule. And Atlanta, same thing as last year, right? They had high hopes. They were picked to win the division by some people. There was this and that. And what did they do? They fell on their face again. So this is a put up or shut up week. Is it fair to say put up or shut up week 1? I don't know.
Well, I think Atlanta just embarrassed themselves, and they don't have any expectations like they did last year, do they?
Yeah. They have expectations. They expect to make the playoffs. That's all I've been reading, and that's all that. I don't know about the division.
They haven't received the national buzz of expectations. Everybody's written them off as just a laughingstock at this point.
But Penix is well received, well regarded. They think that, and he has a very live arm, and he's going to have some good games. And this is going to be the interesting matchup. Penix versus not a great Tampa secondary, but kind of a well-coached, kind of a cerebral team in a way. Gives up points, but stiffens, forces you into making a throw that you don't want to make. So Penix is probably going to be turnover prone at times. He's going to have statistical success in this game, but interceptions will be, I think it's a good chess match, Penix against that defense.
Yeah, and by laughing stock, I didn't mean that they're going to suck. It just people expected them to jump up to a higher level that I don't think that they're going to reach. I mean, they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to do damage, and they've got a shot just as possible.
Would anything change your perception of these teams after week one?
I don't know why, but in my mind, I feel like Tampa Bay is going to sputter out of the gate, and they've got a handful of injuries coming out, and a divisional game out of the gate. That's a tough situation for Tampa Bay to win. If they win handedly, then that's a very good sign for Tampa Bay and a bad sign for Atlanta. But I anticipate all these games are shootouts till the end. So that's what I would expect.
Yeah, I don't think I'll change anything in this one. I kind of understand your thinking. Tampa may sputter a little bit out of the gate. They get a softer team as far as a pass rush to deal with. And I think that helps a little because Baker Mayfield didn't see any action. I was surprised he didn't play at least one series with the new receivers and stuff.
Why do you think Penix didn't play preseason at all?
I think they were protecting their investment. I think it was a management decision. I don't think that was the wise move. I think it's funny the way they went about doing their business, both teams.
Well, Baker didn't play preseason either, so maybe shootouts. Maybe it's one of those long, boring 13-10 final games where the offenses don't get moving.
Well, they'll have relatively vanilla defenses to go against, so it'll be interesting. I probably won't change any perception.
Tennessee, Denver. Denver should be the number one survivor pick. They've got the largest spread of the week at the moment, barely. Tennessee is an enigma to me. I can never figure them out. I can never remember who's on the team and who's not, who's coach. I can't remember anything. It's like a blind spot. I think Denver finished really well. They have high expectations on them. And when you have high expectations, more times than not, those expectations are not met. So I wonder how strongly Denver will come out of the gate this year.
Yeah, kind of contrasting things because Sean Payton is very innovative, but there's so much tape now on Knicks and the offense that in general, you'd think regression for Denver's offense. So Payton's going to have to be one step ahead of the curve. This is a really tough, I mentioned this last week, really tough opener for a rookie quarterback to go against a team that sacked opponents 63 times last year. Tennessee's offensive line isn't very good. They don't have the tight end that a rookie quarterback really needs. I'm moderately bullish on Tennessee to match up against Jacksonville and Indy and maybe hit second place in the division this year. So I'm not going to let's say Denver wins 42-7. I'm not going to treat that as a negative for Tennessee because this just doesn't look like a good matchup for them. I'd be more concerned if Denver won 14-13 on Denver's side than I would for Tennessee. I have no expectations of Tennessee week one.
Exactly. So we'll see. It's I agree 100% with what you said. San Francisco, Seattle. San Francisco's obviously has that easy schedule, but once again they already come into the season with injury issues. I think all the receivers were injured pretty much. So this team goes as McCaffrey goes more than likely. Divisional game. See, both teams are going to want it. The 12th man is gone for Seattle. Anything could happen in this game, frankly.
In the NFC West, every divisional game matters.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, what's going on. Am I right? I just want to refresh my memory. Seattle was 3-6 at home last year, or something like
Something
that.
like, yeah, I believe it was 3-6.
Yeah, so something bad. So you want to have a consequence. Don't start 0-1 at home. So I think from that standpoint, it's very important for Seattle. And for San Francisco, it's more of a mindset issue. If they lose close, if they play well, I'm okay with that. If they lose not so well, then we're saying, well, you can't just snap your fingers and say everything's all right. 2024 was just an awful year, all those injuries and stuff. We can just turn it right back on. So I'm curious how San Francisco will look in this game. But my biggest takeaway is probably Seattle trying to reestablish home field advantage.
Yeah, and I don't think either of these teams really should be able to break away from the other. So
yeah, long season for these. So I don't know otherwise, other than the mental aspect, how important the win or loss is.
We're starting to approach a 3 almost with the Green Bay against Detroit. We talked about it before. This is a much more important game for Green Bay, but is this, is Detroit catching a break here with the strong pass rusher being out of the lineup? Parsons is not even showing up or doing anything with the team until Monday, I thought I heard. So he's not, you can stick him in the lineup, but he's just getting his feet wet there. And we know Love was dinged up, but Green Bay has to pretty much have this game. This is the closest thing to a must-win in Week 1 as there is, as far as I'm concerned.
Green Bay 1-5 in division last year. Obviously, that was why they were the third place team in that division and didn't get. I mean, otherwise they're a number 1 seed. They won all their games pretty much outside of the division except one. Yeah, I was more bullish on Green Bay before the Kenny Clark coming over there. I think there's a path before Kenny Clark was subtracted from the lineup, I should say. I think there's a path for Detroit winning by ramming it down Green Bay's throat and seeing what happens. Whether or not Parsons plays a few snaps, that might impact the line, but it doesn't impact my opinion of this Week 1 game. My evaluation of Green Bay for the season is they're mildly improved, but for this game, I think what I thought would be a Green Bay victory I don't know. I think Detroit has the weapons to try to ram it down Green Bay's throat. So it makes it a little bit more interesting. And that's all. The only other thing I'd say is you're right. I mean, this is an important game for Green Bay. Unless Detroit loses, let's say, 31-10, then that bad taste of the preseason lingers a little bit. You don't want that. Detroit didn't look that great with all the new coordinators and assistants. You don't want that bad taste to linger.
Yeah, they had some special teams issues in preseason, and they still don't have a full roster. So I don't know what games they're playing with Smith. They could use him in the lineup, and they're not signing him. Bridgewater was available, and they didn't bring him back. I would be concerned if I have a feeling that Detroit feels like they can turn it on right away. So I would have a concern if they don't. They could lose the game, but you can't not show up on offense. If they don't show up on offense, that would be a cause for concern. And we're back to Detroit has a healthy defense, so you don't want to see them exploited, in almost full health. So I think Detroit should win this game, even though it's much more important for Green Bay.
I like Brian Branch in the secondary, but I don't like much else in Detroit in the secondary. So I still think that's a little bit of a weak link. And Hutchinson is great, but he needs some pass rush help. If they lose 27-23, that's all right. That then they can start thinking, oh, the preseason, we don't care about that or whatever. They just got to get that bad taste out of their mouth.
Houston at the Rams. Interesting game. We know about the Stafford injury situation. I'm sure he's going to play, and I'm sure he's relatively healthy. And I think what the more concern on Stafford is, the long-term situation throughout the season, because he's had a very high likelihood of re-aggravation of his back issues. But as far as game one goes, if Stafford, this is probably a game the Rams should walk away from. I think that they're the better team. I'm kind of surprised the line is only 2.5. I guess that seems a little low. What do you think?
This game of all the 16 has zero consequences for me. These teams treated the preseason like a plague. I mean, it was ridiculous. Both can recover and win the division. It's a non-divisional. It's AFC versus NFC. It's probably not. This isn't. It's a good game, just like you said. It's a very intriguing game, and I love the matchup analysis of it. But long-term or short-term consequences are absolutely zero. I expect a sloppy game. I expect big plays or turnovers to decide it. It's a nice game, but it has zero consequence to me for the long term.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame it's not later in the season, because it is an unusual or unique matchup that you don't see all the time, with some decent storylines behind it.
I like that. I wish it was a Week 12 matchup when the teams were running on all cylinders.
Yeah, and it's going to get lost in the shuffle with all the other divisional matchups going on. Baltimore and Buffalo. Are there consequences in this game?
Yeah, I sort of did think there are consequences. I didn't think there would be, because in a way, these teams know each other so well. There's no hidden this, that, or whatever. But you have a round robin: Buffalo, Baltimore, Baltimore, KC, KC, Baltimore. So you have the three. And I'm guessing that if Baltimore wins this game, they're going to go 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, for example, because I like the matchup when Buffalo hosts Kansas City. So if Buffalo steals this win, not necessarily steal, it's a pick'em game, but if Buffalo wins this game against Baltimore, I'm projecting Buffalo to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. So from that standpoint, I think there are consequences for Baltimore. If they lose this game, they may not get the number 1 seed. And we talked about the fact that their last game is at Pittsburgh at the end of the year. What if the NFL schedules Baltimore after a physical game at Pittsburgh on a Saturday in the playoffs in the wild card? So I know they're not going to be thinking of that, but I'm personally thinking of the consequences of losing this game.
What's this Buffalo defense status? How do you see it?
They're okay. They have playmakers. I like Jordan Poyer coming back to Buffalo. He doesn't need much time to get ingrained back into the philosophy and stuff like that. They're a good, sometimes really good sacking team, but I don't project a lot of sacks against Lamar Jackson and Baltimore. They're decent. They allow too many pass completions. So Baltimore was a little bit, if they had a little bit more dynamic wide receiver core, that might come into play. But a lot of Baltimore's tight ends, I don't know if Isaiah Likely is healthy, but tight ends should thrive against Buffalo in this matchup. Baltimore has a better defense. There's no question about it. But Buffalo has some parts.
Neither quarterback played preseason, so they could sputter out of the gate. Just a notation there. We know what these teams are, so anything that looks highly unusual will stick out like a sore thumb.
Not much to add.
Minnesota at Chicago rounds out week 1, and I like that division. I like that division, but that matchup usually is pretty boring. But this is actually a really the most interesting time period for each of these teams that I can remember. Ben Johnson's going to want to get out of the gate fast. We want to see whether Cade looks any different. Minnesota, they let a veteran quarterback walk, and now we're going to see whether the kid from Michigan has anything in it and how he can perform. They're putting a lot of trust into him, so they must see something that they feel confident in. Both teams know that they can't afford a lot. I mean, we talked about it. I worry a little bit about Ben Johnson's cockiness. He seems a little cocky instead of confident, and I worry about that. But both of these teams consider this a must-win out of the gate divisional matchup. What do you foresee?
Yeah, Originally I said this was a huge game with consequences, and maybe a little bit more for the home team Bears, which I think though is unfair for a new coach to have such huge consequences in week one. I think Ben Johnson, like all new coaches, can evolve during the year. So it's a little bit unfair to say, oh, you have to win game one. This is your first game as a coach. It does have consequences, but maybe they can overcome that. And the same for Minnesota. It's McCarthy's first game in a hostile environment. He hasn't played since January of 2024. So it may be unfair to say it's a huge game for him too. The Bears have a decent defense. So I'm kind of back and forth, but to be honest, neither team wants to start 0-1. And the Bears probably don't have the roster that Green Bay and Detroit and Minnesota have. So for them to start 0-1 is kind of like a double whammy. Divisional home game loss, your roster has to overachieve during the year. So I kind of have both opinions. And then I have a key matchup to me. And you can speak to this regarding Flores, the defensive coordinator, and Ben Johnson. But I think Chicago going the free agent route and adding 2 starting offensive linemen and drafting one. They've done better. I think this is a better route for Chicago, signing free agent linemen because they haven't drafted as well. So they have a good offensive lineman. They have a better offensive coach and a coaching staff, and they're going to go against Flores and his pass rush. So the issue is if the pass rush is nullified, I think it's edge Chicago because he can sort things out against a suspect Minnesota secondary, in my opinion, and a strong opinion. However, if the offensive line doesn't hold up and Caleb overthinks things, and I think he thinks too much, if he overthinks things, this plays right into Flores' hands in the turnover margin. So what wins in that matchup?
I don't think there's really consequences on either side at this point. I don't anticipate Chicago being in the playoff hunt. I mean, they could end up there. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that they're going to go through some growing pains, and that division is just too tough. But I think both of these teams have built-in excuses if they lose. I don't think either one of them wants to fall back on them. Maybe they're going to get tested against each other, quite frankly. So this is a game Minnesota probably needs more than Chicago does, because I think Minnesota is supposed to have the higher ceiling, and they should be able to take advantage of a first-year head coach and a offensive line. New offensive line, you have a little bit of an adjustment period, where they're not working together quite as well as they will be later on. Caleb's, might be confused, just may make a miscue or two. And Minnesota as a whole team, it's just, is the quarterback going to make some stupid mistakes? And he's a smart guy. He probably won't. So I think this will be far more disappointing to Minnesota if they lose than it will be to Chicago.
Yeah, I think the chess match is going to be really interesting. We know that Chicago didn't have the best coaching staff last year. And now you have Dennis Allen on one side, and you have Ben Johnson calling the plays against Flores' defense. So it's a nice chess match. I kind of like I kind of like the fact that I'm going to watch how this plays out. It's an interesting matchup, like a lot of these are.
I mean, if you're a Bears homer or trying to just be the pure optimist, that coaching staff was one of the worst we've ever seen in professional football.
That's true.
And they pissed away miracle losses on top of it. So if you take away like ridiculous nonsense last minute losses and you put in, a decent coaching staff, it's easy to, and you had all these additions through free agency, draft, and it's easy to drink Chicago Bear Kool-Aid if they start winning out of the gate.
Good thing for them is even if they go through growing pains, and I hate the fact that they'd have a divisional home loss. They have a bye after week 4, and I love that for new coaching staffs, especially for a Ben Johnson coach staff, and Dennis Allen on the other side. I mean, I think they can make some nice adjustments after week 4. So anything they can do in weeks 1 and 4 to pad the record, maybe puts them in playoff contention. I don't know if the roster is all there because it's a brutal division, but as far as having that early bye, I think that's a good thing.
Going into each season, I think our ears are always perked up at the rule changes and how games are going to be called. So we're going to want to see out of the gate which penalties, get a high increase or decrease in being called. What are they going to emphasize with the penalties? What's the new kickoff situation going to be? Because last year teams were happy to take it in the end zone, or teams were happy to kick it in the end zone. I don't think they want to be doing that this year. The 35 is just is almost a penalty. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. And obviously keeping an eye on the first year head coaches, which teams are going to be improved, and a lot of moving parts, not a lot of games.
Yeah. Starting at the 35, 2 first downs and you're in field goal range. I don't think the NFL, that's not the old NFL that I grew up with, but these are the strategic things that coaches have to deal with. They're working out the kinks and when to go for 2 and when to go for 1 and all these other things. And they're working out the kinks. You're right about the penalties. Are they going to call not enough men at the line of scrimmage because the right tackle is lining up 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and stuff like that? They're going to make a point of emphasis early in the year somewhere.
Yeah, and we've got an influx of the new coaches. What are their strategies going to be? We've noticed a change with the 2-point conversions. We've noticed a change with the 4th downs. I would think that the league is going to be even more 4th down aggressive this year than last year. So,
yeah. Do you want to get into my pet peeve or do you want to save it?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know why this bothers me, but handicap, and you don't know what I'm going to be talking about, so I'm really curious to hear your take on it. But people put out records on the internet, on X and this and that. They're 6-3. I don't care about whether or not they do the return on investment or this or that, or they took large favorites. I know that, that's a problem in the industry. The problem I have is when you put in live bets into your record. It's just somebody says, I live bet this at -3.5 or +6.5 or this or this. I think it's anybody this is my personal opinion again. These are people who are, they have websites, they have this, they have that, and whatever. They're putting in websites and their record at the end of the day, instead of being 5-3, it's now 8-3 or 8-4 or whatever. Sure, a live bet could lose, but and the integrity of putting a live bet in a record, I don't know why it bothers me, but how do you know that you could get that price? You have like 5 seconds to make a bet before it's a live bet. What if they saw the next play and stuff like that? I don't know why it bothers me, but what are your thoughts on record keeping when you're exposed to the public and you're counting live bets?
Well, you can't even type out the fact that you placed a live bet before that line is changed. It's hard enough to do that when second half lines come out. So in that respect, it is silly. It really depends on how somebody is presenting it and why they're presenting it. I mean, if it's just Joe Schmo putting it on his record, who cares? If it's some guy who's, trying to make money off of people and he's including his live bets, well, I think that's crossing a line because you can't share those bets, and it's deceptive. You have to be able. any record that you're trying to monetize from has to be something that you could have shared with other people. When I first started on Twitter, I posted what I bet at the numbers that I got, and they were, but I would do it. Most of the time I would put them on pretty much right after I bet them. So maybe not always, I don't remember, but I wasn't trying to monetize anything at that point. So I think really realistically, anybody can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
It's up until the point that you're trying to monetarily benefit from it that the scrutiny should develop, because there's a bunch of nutheads out there, that in every genre of life, that are just doing preposterous things, and you should be able to recognize that. But a lot of people are desperate for self-promotion and such, and brand building, and I just don't. If you can't, if somebody else cannot bet what you have, and you are in some way monetizing, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, these records are posted on various platforms that allow you to punch in bets and stuff like that. And at the very least, I would say you should have a separate accounting, what your straight bets are, and then what your live bet record is. I just find it. I think it hurts people who do that's integrity. And oh well, I mean, not a lot of things bother me in life, so I just got carried away with the conversations that I was seeing.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah, you need to categorize that in an entirely different category, as far as I'm concerned. That's a good idea. But you know what? I've gotten to the point where I don't give a crap what anybody's doing out there. It doesn't matter. I'm worried about myself and my process and my integrity, and I don't give a crap what anybody else is doing. I wasted a lot of time in retrospect, worrying about it, and who cares? Let people be. Let the buyer beware. I mean, I spent 10 years, trying to promote people from, or I help people stay away from buying big games from services, and if they're going to use services, find proven winners, find people that you can learn from with the process that they do. Even if they have a down year, can those people teach you something along the way? But I've changed my mind to the point of it's buyer beware. If you don't have the common sense to evaluate properly, well, that's your fault. But because there's a lot of loose cannons out there with bad intentions, and they blatantly lie, and they've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve to try to monetize. And when it gets to the money, that's when it crosses the line. But it's buyer beware. Yeah. I mean, every day I'm buying some crap on Amazon, and I have buyer's remorse more often than I'd like to imagine. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. What you go to the supermarket, you have buyer's remorse on a regular basis. This is no different. Okay, we don't need to give people training wheels and coddle them for doing the same thing they do in every other aspect of their life.
Yeah, I just don't like it when respected people do that. And there are some respected people doing this. And so that bothers me a little, but I will separate it. I'm just glad I got it off my chest in terms of that. But halftime betting is different. I endorse halftime bets as being part of the record or whatever. You have 15 minutes or 12 minutes. You can pretty much get that line or get really close to that line or something. You're not going to see jumping this, that, or whatever. So I'm okay with halftime bets being counted any way, shape, or form. I just think the live bets is crossing the line.
Well, the only thing that I want to leave with is I want to start off the season better than I did last year. And I got myself too involved in totals as I look back. There's a lot of interesting week one trends that are, worth looking into that probably have some merit, but those are not surefire by any means. The league is evolving from year to year. There was extreme results. Don't forget last year. The fewest home dogs won ever, on the that I saw on the list. Favorites in general covered at an obscene rate. Overs covered at an obscene rate. Yes, generally things regress the following year, but they may not.
My closing thoughts are this. First, I love this session. I love that we're doing this every year where we talk about expectations before even kickoff has happened for any of the games. I think it's very helpful, not to us and hopefully to those who are watching this. And secondly, who knows if we'll pivot or not, but after week one, we'll do this again and see if our expectations, probably ask the same questions, Cris. Did our expectations change? What did we learn? What can we throw out? What are we not going to overreact to? And there's always 2 or 3 teams that we say, no, we should pivot right now. And I think that's what makes the post week one discussion going to be a fun one as well.
Yeah, the key is to get ahead of the masses. If you can, you just need to get ahead on a team or two every few weeks. That's kind of morphing into the opposite of what they appear, and you get some extra added value there. So I don't have a single bet for week one, and I'm in no rush to make them. I'm sure I'll have them, but it's a long season, and I'll be boringly redundant in reminding people that I know that it's about 50% of people have run out of money on their deposits by the end of September with offshores that I know. So people generally, flame out fast. So don't be one of those people.
Don't be one of those people, and enjoy week one. Enjoy having football, NFL football back, real meaningful football. Don't forget that in a few months, we're going to be without it again. So enjoy it.
All right. See you next week.